we read in the portion of Vayigash, Yosef, who was the viceroy, who the brothers were not aware who he was, had told them that unless they bring their youngest brother, Binyamin, back to Egypt, they should not come back, and he will not release their brother who he had taken hostage. They come back with Binyamin. He plants his goblet in Binyamin's saddlebag. He's accused of being a thief. He wants to retain Binyamin. Immediately, the brother's response was that we know we're innocent. God has found our failing, and they remain silent. Yehuda, the leader, he presents the case, the defense. Why he's going to prove by recounting everything from the beginning, their first encounter, the first meeting with the viceroy, how this was calculated, and this was what we call a setup, and they were actually framed by the viceroy because he wanted to retain the youngest brother, and it's a false accusation, and it's baseless, and they're all innocent. And by depicting it, and he initially had put himself forth to them and to his countrymen how compassionate he is, he will show through this presentation that he's a person who's cruel beyond anybody's imagination. Vayigash elav Yehuda. Yehuda approached him. Vayoma bi Adoni. He refers to Yosef as my master. Yedabin al avdecha dov beozne Adoni. Allow your servant to speak into the ears of my master, meaning in a way that the words will be communicated succinctly, clearly, and you will fully grasp what I'm saying. And because it was so direct and almost so caustic, he predicated by saying, Al yichar abcha badoni. And your anger, your wrath should not come upon your servant. Ki chamocha kaparo, because I esteem you no less than the king, which has many levels of understanding. And now he starts recounting. Adoni Shoal, my master asked, Avodov Lemor, your servant saying, Hayishlem Ovo Ach, do you have a father, do you have a brother? Vanomer al Adoni, and we answered, my master, Yeshlon Ov Zakein, V'yeled Zekunim Koton, and we have a child who's born to our father in his old age, who's young, V'ochiv Meis, and his brother died, meaning his full brother, V'yivosu Levado Li'imo, and he's the only child left from his mother, from the maternal side, V'oiv Ahevo, and his father loves him. Now, initially, when we had spoken about Yosef's relationship with his father, and why Yisrael Avas Yosef B'Kolbanov. Yisrael, we had mentioned, is the spiritual profile of Yaakov when he's addressing all issues which pertain to the eternity and the spirituality of Klal Yisrael, to safeguard it and to perpetuate it. It says, Ki ben zukunim alo. So Rashi over there cites Chazal, one of the interpretation. Bar chakim alo, he's the wisest of his sons, and he had transmitted and communicated all the Torah that he studied in Shem Ve'ever, he had communicated to Yosef. So we had understood then, and it does say over there, the reason why he loved Yosef more because he was Ben Rochel. He was Ben Rochel, not for that reason, but because he was Bar Chakim, he was the wisest of his sons. And therefore he communicated the Torah of Shem Ve'ever. we had mentioned that Zara shel Rochel, Zara shel Esav, Einu Nofel b'yad Zara shel Rochel, that's Esav's progeny, could only fall, every battle that Klaus ever had with Amalek, with the Edomites, the progeny of Rochel had to be involved. Because as it says, Beis Yosef Lahova. Beis Yosef is the flame that reaches out to consume Esav, Amalek. And that's why every battle we had with Amalek was the first battle encounters with Yoshua, led the battle. Who was from the Shevet Ephraim, the tribe of Ephraim. And then there was Shaul HaMelech, which was the first battle as a king going against Amalek. He was from Binyamin. And Mordechai and Esther, Purim, they were from Binyamin. Shevet Binyamin, tribe of Binyamin. But the concept of Golus, to contend with all the issues of exile. Yosef had that also, because Yosef also, it says, he was Ben Zekunim. His facial features were identical to his father. So what does that mean? That means Yaakov saw him as Yaakov himself is the patriarch of Golus. Yosef has all that, the wherewithal to deal with all those issues. So therefore he taught him the Torah that he had studied in Shem Ve'ever, which contends with all those issues of Golus. He had given over to Yosef, because Ki Ben Zekunim Ulo. So we explained that all his features, all the aspects of Yosef were identical to his father. But over here the Baal HaTurim explains, when it says Yeled Zekunim Koton, the word Zekunim is written, the Vav is deleted. So without the vowels it can be read Zikenim. So the Baal HaTurim explains, Shemoslo Koma Shalomad Zikenim, he had transmitted to Binyamin all that he had learned from the elders, the Hainu Shem Ve'ever. All the Torah he studied at Shem Ve'ever, which is again that same Torah which initially he had communicated to Yosef, he communicated that to Binyamin. Binyamin, his facial features were not like his father. He was Ben Rochel. He was the son of Rochel. Nevertheless, so we see over here that this has relevance to what? To Bnei Rochel. Rochel herself. Binyamin is the son of Rochel, and what? So could be, the reason is, as we'll see in a moment, that the Ramban explains when he's telling over the story, he says to the viceroy, he says, he's recounting what their father had said to them. You know, my wife only gave birth to me only 2 children. So Ramban asks, there were 12 children. What do you mean my wife? He had 2 wives. Only Bill and Zilpah were the concubines. They weren't wives, but Rachel and Leah, they're both matriarchs, they're wives. So what does he say? He says to his chosen, you should know, my wife only gave birth to 2 children. So Ramban writes over here, the only wife who he willingly took was only Rachel. Leah that was through deception. Leah became his wife. He says, I only have 2 sons who were born to me by my wife. Possessive. Only the wife who I willingly took, there were only 2 children. And my primary love is to them as if they're my only children. I have no other children from anyone else. And all the others are like children from concubines. So they only have one only child left. Therefore we find Rachel always goes before Leah. Is Beis Yisrael. When he summoned them to come to the field before he fled from Lavan, it says he summoned Rachel and then Leah. Because that was his intent. He only wanted to marry her. So therefore, again, he's Bar Chakim. Why? Because he is the primary wife. She was the and these are the children from the primary wife. Therefore, only to them did he give over the special Torah. they were the ones who actually represented who he was. It's interesting. The Ramban writes that when Yaakov had the dream on Har Moriah, and he saw the angels ascending and descending, it says, Hashem Omid Olav. Hashem stood at the top of the ladder. So the Ramban writes over there that by all the tzaddikim, we say, Malacha v'yitzav lo shmorcha. He called over all of the tzaddikim, who protects them? Malachim, angels. Yaakov, Hashem says to Yaakov, you don't need angels to protect you. I'm always with you. Because I'm always with you, you don't need angels to protect you. So, and that's Hashem Nitzav. God was watching him from the top of the ladder. So Yaakov had that direct connection. The Shekhinah was directly connected to Yaakov. Now, the Gemara tells us, in whose portion did the Aron lie? In the Beis Hamikdash. It was Bechelko Shel Binyamin. Binyamin is referred to as Ushbezichne Shel Shekhinah. He is the host of the Shekhinah. So it's interesting. Yaakov himself is what is the location of the Shekhinah. The equivalent of the Kodesh Kadoshim, the Holy of Holies. Binyamin, that's where it lies. That's where the Oren, that's its location. Binyamin. Ben Zekunim although. So that we say that Binyamin has the ability to contend with all the issues of exile, which was studied in Shem Ve'ever as Yosef, because they themselves are an extension of their father. Being the children from a mother who was chosen by intent, not by a secondary type wife. That's Ishti. They have that ability that Yaakov, so it's not Zivi Kunim, because facially he resembled him, but because they are his main progeny. Because they are the progeny of Yaakov, they carry the characteristics. For instance, we find, but again, this is a whole different level. Ayin hara, evil eye, does not come upon the children of Yosef, Ephraim and Menashe. Ben Paras Yosef, right? Alei Oyin, he's above the eye. That was something between them. And Yosef, because he protected his mother from the gaze of Esau when initially they had met, for that also, the eye of no person comes upon Yosef's children. It's Ephraim and Menashe. They will multiply like fish, as fish are, Rashi cites Chazal, are covered by the water and they're not subject to the human eye. Your progeny will not be subject to the human eye. We don't find, Binyamin didn't have that. But from here, from this Chazal, from Ben Zekunim, from the Balaturim, the ability to contend with all the issues of Chutz La'aretz, that he did have as a Ben Rochel, and therefore this was communicated to him and not communicated to the other brothers. It's interesting. He had said to Yosef, "Vayivosehu levado imo, v'oy v'ahivo," and his father loved him. Now, we find that initially, the Yisrael oav es Yosef mikol banov, ki ben zekunim ono. Now, why did he love him more than the other sons? Ben zekunim barchakim, because he was the one who was able to assume that responsibility for Golus of Avevo. Now, Binyamin is the one who assumes that level of responsibility. So what is the love rooted in? Not because he's the Ben Rochel. Not because he's Rachel's child, because of his innate value that he has that ability to contend to guarantee the survival of Klal Yisrael, despite the fact is we're going to be in exile and subject to all those influences. He has that ability. Now, Yaakov was denied the knowledge that Yosef was alive for 22 years. Why was he denied? Because when he had fled to Padna Ram, to his uncle, his mother had said, you go for a Yom Machodim, for a short period of time. He overstayed he stayed 22 years. So for those 22 years, going and coming, of those years, which we don't count the years that he spent in Shem Ve'ever, which would have been another 14 years, of course there the Torah protected him, 22 years. Now, we find when Rivka and Yitzchak had two sons, Yaakov and Esav, it says, the Yitzchak Oav es Esav kitzayid befiv. Right? So Rashi says two interpretations. Why did he love Esav? Love. Because the trappings were in Yitzchak's mouth, one interpretation. He hunted for him. And the other was kitzayid befiv, hayumarabeu befiv. He deceived him. He actually deceived him, presenting himself as a tzaddik. So that's why Yitzchak had special love for him. Rivka oheves es Yaakov. Rivka loved Yaakov. So when she said Yom HaChodim, a short period you could be away. He stayed away 22 years. What did she deny his mother? What did he deny his mother? The love that she had for him, it's Rivka oheves es Yaakov. So what is he denied? What is Yaakov denied? Yisrael of us as Yosef called Bonov. Ohav. You're going to be denied. The child that you love, for whatever reason you love him, of course it's connected to his spirituality, you're going to be denied that. As you denied your mother the love. It's not a son wasn't with the father. But it's Rivka oheves es Yaakov. You are that primary special child. Now how do we connect it to spirituality? She's saying very simple. We find it says, Vayetze Yaakov Beersheva Yel Charana. So the question Chazal asked, we know he's in Beersheva. It should say, Vayel Charana, what does it have to tell? He left Beersheva to tell us, because when a tzaddik leaves a location, he actually, the beauty, the splendor, the specialness of the location is no longer the same. The location has been depleted of Kedusha. Although Yitzchak and Rivka were in Beersheva, they were there. It's not the same Beersheva. Without Yaakov, it's not the same Beersheva. So when we speak about the location being affected negatively, that means affected negatively, spiritually speaking. Meaning Yitzchak and Rivka were in a location that was a holy location when Yaakov was there. Yaakov had to flee. He had no choice. His mother instructed him to flee. His father instructed him, go take a wife. So he had to, for how long? If he would have come back sooner, the location that his parents would have been a holy location. The level of avoda, because the location is holier, it would have been another level of avoda. It's not the same location. So what did he deny his parents? It's not only because his mother loved him. What did he deny his parents? Levels of spiritual growth that he wasn't there. We say, when we conclude the Shemon Esrei, we say a Yirotzo. She bana beis hamikdash b'meher v'yameinu v'sein chalkein b'sorasecha. The beis hamikdash should be rebuilt speedily, quickly in our time, and you should give us our portion in Torah. What is the building of beis hamikdash? What relevance does this have to our portion? What is the beis hamikdash? Why do we have difficulty extracting and recovering our portion that was given to us? Every person has his portion, designated portion at Sinai. When is that portion taught to you? In Yitro, the Malach, when he teaches Torah to the child before he's born, your chelik, your portion of Torah is being taught to you. Life is what is recall of that Torah. Most people don't recoup that Torah, or the various levels of depth of that Torah. Why? Because there's endless blockage. And endless, as it says, there's a mechitza shel barzel. There's an iron curtain separating between us and Avinu Shebashamayim, the Gemara tells us. What is that? That's the Golus. But if the Shechina should come back, Yibana Beis Mishmeir of Yameinu, automatically the Torah becomes accessible to us. Our portion of Torah is Chalkein B'Sorasecha. As a result of Yaakov being back in Beersheva, it's a different Beersheva. So the availability of various growth and horizons of spiritual growth is not available unless Yaakov returns. See, he denied his parents that level. Okay? Good. And that's the Ahevo. Rivka Heves as Oheves is Yaakov. Yaakov loved Yosef. Yisrael loved Yosef more than all his other sons. Now, in this week's reading, we learn when Hod Yosef Chai, my son Yosef is alive, it says, V'atechi ruach Yaakov aviyim. His spirit became alive. So Rashi cites the Midrash, Chozer lo Shechina. The Shechina came back. So how many years was Yaakov denied the Shechina, the divine presence, which cannot be fathomed what he was denied because he didn't prophesy for 22 years. Spiritual growth. Now what's the Mida Keneged Mida? The measure for measure. Yosef was denied to Yaakov, who he loved him more than all his other children, as he denied his mother the love that his mother loved him. As he denied his mother the opportunity of spiritual growth to his father and mother for 22 years, because it's a different dimension of location. It's the equivalent of the Holy of Holies, and even more, you'll be denied that growth. How was he denied? For 22 years, he did not prophesy. If he would have prophesied, that means he would have been connected at another level. Yaakov would be a different Yaakov. Yaakov would be a different Yaakov. The Klal Yisrael would be a different Klal Yisrael. Different level. It's very interesting, we had explained that why did Yaakov not kill Eliphaz? And why was he agreeable to relinquish all his wealth? And that was the basis why he had to spend 22 years away from his parents, because otherwise he would have had that wealth, he would have negotiated immediately. Not only that, you see many ramifications of this. We find that we saw Rachel immediately cried. One of the interpretations, Rashi cites Chazal, because he didn't have gifts to give her. Is that a reason to cry? Because he didn't give her gifts. So we had explained, because just as we find by Eliezer, when he realized that Rivka was the destined wife of Yitzhak, immediately took out 2 bracelets, which had a 10 weight of gold. So Rashi cites Chazal, 2 bracelets correspond to the Aser Sadibros, to the 2 tablets of the Aser Sadibros, and the 10 weight in gold are the actually 10 Dibros themselves, on the 10 commandments. What does that mean? So when he put those bracelets on Rivka's hands, because she was going to be the matriarch of Klal Yisrael, that already set in motion and gave a certain degree of assurity that it's going to happen. The Nezek, which is Bekel Lugugolis, corresponds to what? The Machzah Shekel. What's the Machzah Shekel? It says, Mar tells us that when Haman sealed the fate of the Jews, the decree, Lahashman Lara B'Laubeit, Minar V'Azoki, Tafan Noshim, every man, woman, and child, over the face of the earth, it says he gave so many thousands of talents of silver. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu always brings the refuah kodem lamaka. The remedy always precedes the problem. That the Masa Shekel we give, which on Rosh Chodesh Adar we sent to buy the new korbanos, the new communal sacrifices, that countered the silver bullion which Haman had given. That's the refuah kodem lamaka. Now, but what guaranteed that Machzah Shekel? The Nezem Zov, which was Becca Mishkolo, the nose ring, which Eliezer had given Rivka, that guaranteed there's going to be a Machzah Shekel, because that was its weight. Yaakov, because he had forfeited everything. If he would have gifts, he would have given the gifts to Rachel. Those gifts would have brought us to another level, because Rachel is the future matriarch. She's the primary matriarch. Because he was denied that, and he couldn't, that's why he cried. Because this has to do with the eternity of Klal Yisrael. So we have a number of things happening over here. If Yaakov would have prophesied for another 22 years, Yaakov would have been in another dimension. He would have been in another dimension, Klal Yisrael would have been in another level. Because he didn't, we're not at that level. Because he didn't have the gifts, So Rivka didn't represent that. Rachel didn't represent that any longer. She couldn't secure whatever was meant to be secured through those gifts. And why did he do it? Because he was concerned he may be diminished. This was his evaluation. He had no idea what the punishment would be. Punishment, suffering is one thing. Here, the physical suffering. Here, the punishment was you're going to be denied spirituality, prophecy. So now the question is, which loss was greater? The loss if you would have killed Eliphaz and been diminished, or it would have been the other one? Now that you didn't prophesize and you didn't have the gift, is the klauso now a lesser klauso? Which lesser is greater lesser? A or B? This was Yaakov's decision. As they say, only Hashem knows. It's interesting. We find that when Yaakov presented himself before Paro, when finally Yosef brings him, Paro says, I've never seen such an old man in my life. At the time he was only 130 years old. He says, I'm not that old. My forefathers lived much longer than I did. Right? Yitzhak lived 180 years. Avraham Avinu lived 175 years. He says, I'm only 130 years old. But why do I look aged, prematurely aged? Because I endured so many, I had hard years. So the famous Medrash, which is cited, that Yaakov lived 147 years. That means he was meant to live 180. So that means how many years did he have taken off his life? 147. Right? He had 33 years taken from his life for each word that he had said. So the famous question from Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, if you count the words, it's less than words are less than 33 words. So why did he have those 33 years taken off? So he had said, Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, according to Vrocho, that if you would count the words that he looked aged, you add those words, then you have the complete number 33. So what was the claim? Meaning, he says, Hashem says, after I saved Yosef, I saved Dinah, and all that I saved, and I saved Shimon and Levi, that they were killed in Shechem. All this, why are you complaining to this heathen? So, meaning, if he would have been more appreciative for the positive, it wouldn't have impacted on him so negatively in terms of experience the hardship as he experienced it. He only experienced the hardship on that extreme level because he didn't appreciate the positive side. So those years now, if Yaakov would have lived longer in Egypt, it says, when did the Shibud start? Why is Vayechi Pasha Stuma? Because when Yaakov passed away, it was Nisnu Eineim V'Limun Shel Yisrael B'Shibud. Our hearts and our eyes were sealed as a result of the Shibud, as a result of the Madaj. As long as Yaakov was alive, it's as if Egypt didn't exist, although we physically were in that location. There was no effect, even on the microscopic level. It's as if we were not in Egypt. That's the insular, holy environment which Yaakov created. Once he passed away, he wasn't there any longer. Now, but why wasn't he there? Because he experienced hardship. How much hardship? 22 years of not believing Yosef was devoured by a beast. So it comes out again. Yaakov would have lived longer. Not only would have Yaakov been at a different level, he would have lived longer. He would have prophesied 22 years. Additional. On top of that, he wouldn't have been aged. Because it says in the Mefarshim that losing Yosef, pain-wise, was greater than everything combined. Than every problem he had in his life. That's how negative it was to his life. But Joseph wouldn't have been sold into slavery if he would have killed Eliphaz. So look at all these ramifications, endless ramifications, in the negative, because he did not kill Eliphaz. But again, this was his calculation. Yaakov Ishtam Yeshiv Olim, Yaakov, the one who was the most special of the patriarchs, that was his decision. He was punished which he was, Chazal said, the 22 years, and this was the fallout of all those, because of those 22 years, he denied his parents, his mother, the Yom HaChodim. The Ramban writes in last week's parsha that Yosef, after he became viceroy, wanted to inform his father that he's alive. His father loved him. He knew how much his father loved him and what he meant to his father. And he knows his father is agonizing and grieving over him. He should send. Although he knows he can't leave Egypt, he should send. As Yaakov came to Egypt, years when he knew immediately he was alive, he could have informed him, really would have come to Egypt. Why didn't he do it? So Ramban says that because the dreams were prophetic, the dreams couldn't have come to fruition of his father bowing and the brothers bowing unless all this scenario actually unfolded. That's why. What was the scenario? That the brothers have to bow to Yosef. Now, why did they have to bow to Yosef? Because when Rachel Imenu had asked for a child, he says, "Vayichar Yaakov Rachel." He became more than upset with her. He became very angry with her, and he says, "Asachas Elokim Anochi." Am I in the place of God to give you a child? Because she says, "If you don't give me a child, Meso Anochi, I will die." So he became very angry. So the Medrash says, is this the way you speak to a distressed woman? How do you speak to your wife this way? You realize she's distressed. She has no child. I swear in your life, your children will bow to her children. So why did the scenario have to come? So who was directly responsible for Yaakov not being informed that Yosef was not alive? He could have informed them sooner. Because he spoke without sensitivity to Rachel. Is that the way you speak to a distressed woman? You don't speak this way. So again, all this, what happened, is due to various moments of Yaakov's making decisions or not making a decision, which brought about all this. Now, Yehuda is the spokesman. Now, why is Yehuda the spokesman? So he goes to explain. Ki abdcha orav es hanar, mimovi lemor. Your servant took responsibility, gave a guarantee from your servant, my father, saying, Imlo avienu elecho, if I don't bring him back to you, v'chotoshi lo v'kol hayomim, I will sin to my father all my days. What's kol hayomim? Rashi, why am I in the fray more than my brothers? Because I'm bound here with a very strong bond. Because if I don't return him, I'll be excommunicated from both worlds, the physical world and the spiritual world. That's kol hayomim, all my days. Now, Yudah evidently had to give that kind of guarantee. Gemara tells us that a person who accepts excommunication himself, even on a condition, because initially it's not in your control how it's going to happen, even if the condition is met, the person is still excommunicated. That's how serious excommunication is. And therefore, until Moshe, at the end of his life, the last day of his life, was mispalo for Yehuda to be reinstated in Olam Haba, to be qualified, to be fully reinstated, he did not enter the Yeshiva Shalmala, to the heavenly yeshiva, and to be able to have the final word in Torah until Moshe had prayed for him. Now, Yaakov understanding the seriousness of excommunication, what the consequences are. Why did Yaakov not accept less of a guarantee? Yehuda offered. Yaakov said, if that's your guarantee, then I will. Then I will release him into your custody. But firstly, why did he have to give? Yehuda evidently gave that kind of guarantee. He understood anything less than that, Yaakov's not going to release him into his custody. But why did he have to give that guarantee? Why? He'd say, I will give my life for it. Still not enough. He had to put his Olam Haba, he had to put his share in the world to come on, put it online. Now, there was continuous strife between Rachel's children and Leah's children. Okay? To what degree are you going to put yourself out? That's the question. What are you going to do if Binyamin's life is put in jeopardy? What's considered doing all that you can do? What's considered doing all you can do? The person never knows what the maximum is. Example, a person has a very good friend, and he really needs some financial help. And the person helps him out of the ordinary because they're such close friends. And the person says, could you do a little more? He says, I can do a little more, but after that, I can't do more. And he does more. Then the person says, do you think you can do more? He says, I can't. I'm maxed out. I've exhausted all that I could do, can't do more, okay? And he did more. It's unheard of what he did, the kindness. Time passes, his son has the identical problem as his best friend. And he could do more for his son. Why couldn't he do more for his son? When it was a question of doing more for his friend, he says, I can't. If I could, I would. But you can't. Because in that mind frame, you find you have no capacity to do more than you did. When it comes to your son, you put your son before yourself very often. Therefore, all of a sudden, you find the means to do more. It depends what's on mind, what's at stake. To be able to do your best, we don't know what our best could be. Every one of us know, Yiddishkeit-wise, mitzvah-wise, learning-wise, whatever we do, we all know we can do better. We know we can do better. So why don't we do better? Good question. Why we don't do better? But fact, anybody asks, do you think you can find another 5 minutes a day to study Torah? Person says definitely. So why aren't you? So the answer really is, for that is because, does it really make a difference? Doesn't make it, does 5 minutes really make such a difference? Therefore we minimize the value of the 5 minutes. But that's the retort back. That justifies us not taking advantage of the 5 minutes. But we all know we can do a lot better. And as we do better, we see we still could even do more than that. That's the way it is. So Yehuda understanding human nature, even a person who's as great as Yehuda, he's Malchus, he has full control. But unless you put the person's feet to the fire, literally with no escape to any degree, or they say in the vernacular world, terminology, no wiggle room, not an iota, then you'll do your best. Then you'll do your best. You will not leave a stone unturned. And we see, he said to Yosef, I took responsibility. I am the Oriv. Mentioned in the past, we find that because they sold Yosef into slavery, it's a Torah violation to sell a human being into slavery. It's punished by death. So that's why we had the Asuru Malchus, 10 martyrs. And we say that from Sinai till their generation, there weren't such people of such dimension of Torah in that one generation as that group of 10 people. And that was the kapora, that was the atonement for that. Because they sold Joseph into slavery. First of all, they did tshuva. They did tshuva. Now it had to be the 10 greatest sages. Now, Yaakov, as a result of what happened, as we said, he did not prophesy for 22 years. What did the sons of Yaakov deny their father? Because they sold Joseph into slavery. And he believed that they were dead. He was dead. 22 years of prophecy. What level of Torah and understanding of spirituality would have Yaakov achieved not to be believed? So what's the Mida Keneged Mida? The 10 greatest sages who bring clarity and illumination and have the ability to advance Klal Yisrael, that's going to be taken from us. As you denied Yaakov, your father, that growth, all your descendants, Mida Keneged Mida, are going to be denied spiritual growth. In the same context, Yaakov is Yaakov Ishtam Yoshev Holim. This impacted and minimized and obstructed all the channels to grow in Torah, which is synonymous with spirituality. Talmud Torah Keneged Chulam. That was the Mida Keneged Mida. That's why it had to be the greatest sages. Here, when Yosef reveals himself, the first thing he says to them, "V'yomi Yosef elecho, ani Yosef, ha'orav yichoy." Is my father still alive? It's a famous word from the Brisker Rov. What do you mean? Is my father still alive? When they came from Canaan, first thing he asks is, "How's your elderly father?" He says he's well. They haven't been back. There was no communication. Now he reveals himself. He says, "Ani Yosef, I'm Yosef, my father's alive." We already told you. How are we supposed to know? There's no communication, right? So what is he asking? So Brisker Rov explains that sometimes to be able to appreciate something, you have to say something in a certain way. Meaning like this: who was the most endeared child to Yaakov? Yosef. You just depicted and made a presentation what level of cruelty I have. I'm hard-hearted, I'm stone-hearted, I'm denying this old man, this child, because if this child leaves his father, he will die. Nafsho kshur b'nafsho, their souls are bound up with one another, so on and so forth. How could you be heartless and cruel? Ani Yosef, there was nobody more beloved to my father than me. Hod Avichoi, is my father still alive? When you sold me into slavery, did you take that in consideration? How cruel you people were? When you look at the other person, how you depicted me as the most cruel person possible. Ani Yosef. I'm Yosef. So how did my father survive it? Was that part of you? Was that taken into consideration? Wasn't. So what's he claim? So that was the Musar. And he gave the Musar when they're wide open to be able to embrace this. According to that, seemingly Yosef repeats himself. He says, "Come close to me," and they came. And Yosef, I am Yosef, brother you sold me to Egypt. So, firstly, that was the symbol. That was the indicator. Nobody knew. They made a cherim, and they included God into the cherim, that nobody's permitted to reveal that Yosef was sold into slavery. So, if that's the case, how did Yosef know? Divination, whatever it is, there's no way anybody can know. But when he identified himself, he didn't say, "Ani Yosef Achichem, Asher Macharti Moshe Mitzrayim," which that was the confirmation that he's the Yosef. He said, "Well, I'm circumcised, I speak Hebrew." Well, the interpreter also spoke Hebrew, right? Circumcised, that we said, all the Egyptians were circumcised. So his circumcision was a little bit different, because a non-Jew circumcision is only Mila without Priya, without pulling back the foreskin. His Yaakov Avinu When he circumcised his children, it was his equivalent of after Sinai. So the circumcision was different. But you could say, who knows, variations. But Hashem, that piece of information, that's privy. Nobody knows that. So how do you know it? Evidently, you must be Yosef. That's the proof. He says to his brothers, Al te'otzvu. Don't be saddened. And don't be angry with yourselves. Did you sold me to Egypt? Even though he came out alive, but do you know what it means to be in Egypt? To be exposed. Could you imagine putting somebody in a torture chamber for all these years? To be exposed. Yosef was a tzaddik. Now they see he's a tzaddik. He has to be exposed to every level of depravity. Witchcraft, idolatry, pagan, everything was there. They could have said, what's the heno? They sold me to be here in Egypt. I was sent to bring life. God sent me. So not you sent me, God sent me. Now, how was it so obviously clear that it was God? He'd say, who else could have been? I mean, such a thing, especially the way he rose and fell. He rose to power, fell. He was first in the house of Potiphar, then he was in prison, became the equivalent of the warden, then he's out, and now all of a sudden, in a moment, he soars to be viceroy. So, it's not that I should be viceroy to be viceroy. Viceroy is only a station, an opportunity to be able to provide for you. Lifneichem, not to save the Egyptians, not to save anybody else, but to save you. How is this so clear? Then he explains there's another 5 years of the famine, and Hashem sent me, that there should be a remnant of you, and so on and so forth. Yeah. We mentioned that, the firstborn of a child, of a person, is the most beloved to him. Firstborn, especially if it's a boy. Now, the first son of Yaakov, of Yosef, was Menashe. The youngest was Ephraim. Ephraim and Menashe, only two children, two sons. What is the basis for the name Menashe? Ki noshani Elokim mi beis ovim kol amoli. God caused me to forget my father's household and all the angst and all the pain I had there. Now, what kind of name is that? To remember my past experience, and that God allowed me to forget it. What's that? I'm thankful. I'm very thankful. So because you're thankful, therefore. So a person climbs Mount Everest, Havdil, and he makes the summit. His next child is called Everest, because he climbed Mount Everest. What exactly? How did Yosef know exactly? God caused me to forget. What is this all about? Yosef knew that he is the one who's responsible to secure and perpetuate the future of Klal Yisrael. He has to prepare the exile for them. It should be the best scenario, the best situation. How does he know this? Could you imagine a person being tortured, being traumatized, mentally, physically abused? That person is so badly scarred, regardless of what other station he finds himself in, he still has all the scars of that in that particular time. Yosef, in terms of what he was through, how scarred should he have been? If he had any degree of claim or dislike, of animosity towards his brothers, he can't be a proper facilitator. That means everything the slate has to be cleaned as if he had amnesia. But he didn't have amnesia. He remembered vividly every point of the way. So what happened? Hashem caused him to forget as if it never happened. When all of a sudden he began forgetting all that happened to him, gradually, whatever claim he could have had no longer existed. There was no claim against him. He had no claim against them. He had no claim. But this is miraculous. That was the confirmation of Yosef. Why did Hashem send me here? To be the mashbir, to be the one to guarantee the golus. That was the guarantee. Otherwise, why did God perform a miracle? Factually, it is a miracle that he forgot. When Paro heard that Yossi's family came from Canaan, it says, "Vayita b'nei Paro b'nei avodov." It found favor in the eyes of Paro and his servants. So Ramban explains, it's really Chazal, Ki oyo hadover lem l'cherpo. It was like a disgrace that a person of Yaakov's pedigree or background should be a ruler over Egypt. Shehimshol bem ish nochri, eved mibeis ha'asurim, yotzo, limloch, a slave out of prison, rose to be the monarch. Elov achim lichbodim. And now they see the family, these people came from a very prestigious family. He's qualified to there. Somchu kulam b'davar. They're all very happy. That's why it's vayite b'nei Paro u'b'nei avodov. Because till now it was a disgrace. Now that he comes from such quality pedigree, this is our pride. Okay? Now, we find that Paro had given an order that Yosef should take wagons to bring back his father and family. And he says, let your father leave everything in Canaan. The clothing, their personal effects. They come to Egypt, we'll re-outfit him with everything. They don't bring their beds, they don't bring their mattresses, their other things. They don't bring anything. But what does it say? When Yaakov came, it said he brought every iota of possession from Canaan to Egypt. So what are you going to say? What's the reason? Because it's no worse than the Pachim Ketanim, right? If Yaakov went back as wealthy as for Pachim Ketanim, for worthless earthenware vessels, and from there we learn tzaddikim, chavim mamon b'gufan, they value their assets as much as their bodies, because they lose the asset, what's left? And they won't justify doing the wrong thing, transgressing. So now that the Paro says, leave everything behind, just let Goodwill Industry pick up the clothing and let this one do that. Do you think Yaakov's going to listen? No way. If Pachim Ketanim, he goes back for it. He's bringing all this to Egypt. And it says, when he came, it says, and all that he had amassed in Canaan, he brought with him. For he didn't heed the word. Now, by a non-Jew, the whole concept that you value your asset even to the smallest detail, even to worthless vessels, for a non-Jew, that's a disgrace. That's a indicator that you're a beggar. A person of means doesn't put himself out for earthenware vessels. Right. Yaakov did. Paro says, I'll give him the world. But why did he give him the world? For Yaakov or for himself? Right? It was for himself, it wasn't for Yaakov. Because as it says, Vayita Be'enei Paro Be'enei Avodov, until now they said he was a slave. He's a disgrace. No, so we see he's from royalty. So why are they doing it? They're not doing it because out of selfless dedication and love for Yosef. Because what he did to the country. It's just ingratiate themselves. Ingratiate, and that's why it's Vayitav. That's why it was found such positive favor in their eyes. Okay, stop.